Good. Glad to have you here. I'm Tal Blevins, the publisher and co-founder of IGN. It's my pleasure to be up here with Cris Roberts, somebody whose games I've played for almost 30 years now, Cris. Long history here in the
Makes you feel really old.
Yeah. I remember I was actually working at Babbage's when Wing Commander first came out. Was that a call out for Babbage's? Does somebody remember Babbage's? When Wing Commander came out, and I remember having to stock when the speech pack finally came out, those 5-pound boxes of 3.5-inch discs to actually have the technology to do something so interesting.
By the way, there was, I think, a little bit of a controversy this past few days when our head of live operations estimated that potentially it could be 100 gigabyte install on the drive.
Saw that.
So maybe you just imagine that in floppy drives.
So let's just start out, kind of talk a little bit about your career. You have been developing games for a long, long time here. Worked on the Wing Commander series, worked Privateer, started Digital Anvil, worked on Starlancer and Freelancer, Strike Commander. You went to Hollywood for a while. You did the Wing Commander movie. You were your producer, director, writer for about 10 years. But now you're back in video game development.
Yeah, and I'm having a great time, and I'm very happy to be back. I mean, in general, I love creating worlds, and I think there isn't a better place to create worlds than in the interactive arena right now. I mean, just in terms of how you can build a world and detail it out and create somewhere that you can do anything and go anywhere, I think it's unparalleled. I mean, it doesn't matter if I was making a film, you couldn't do the same thing. Writing a book, you couldn't really do the same thing. I mean, you basically create a playground for people to spend time inside, and that's what I've really loved. And I sort of, when I made the break for a while, it was mainly because I sort of was frustrated at the fidelity that you could do that in games. Sure. And things have changed a lot in the 10 plus years that I took a break, and that's kind of what we're taking advantage of Star Citizen. And the other thing that's really great is that you can directly connect to the people that play the game and love the game. And so one of the nicest things about doing something like Star Citizen that's crowdfunded and doing these kind of events, or doing the sort of community-driven events that we, like we just did one at PAX East where we had a party on the Saturday for people that have backed the game, and they could come and they could see the, some of the first-person shooter aspects of the game. And it's just nice. You get to sort of meet and interact with people that love the same kind of games you do, and they're really excited by what you and the team are working on, and that's kind of really sort of invigorating and fun. So I'm having a really good time.
Yeah, it's obvious the community is super excited about Star Citizen. You guys just hit $75 million in funding, crowdfunding. Yep. So congratulations on that milestone.
Well, not to me. Congratulations to most of the people in here.
800,000 backers. Do we have any backers here in the audience? I'm sure we do. Look at that. So lots of fans here. Lots of people you got to please, Cris. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
But for you,
you got to please. I got to please myself. So I'm pretty tough on what's going to be a good game.
So for you and the team to come together, 3 years ago, and really think about wanting to jump back into doing a space combat sim again. Like, this is a genre that traditional publishers have kind of shunned for a long time. And you came back and you guys showed that you can do record-breaking crowdfunding for a genre that pretty much was dead. Like, how did you do that? Like, why?
Well, I mean, it's actually most of the stuff that we've done has been just approximately just over 2 years, because the first for a year before I announced that I was doing some prototyping, but it was like myself and a few other people, but it wasn't the sort of scope of the team that we have now, or we have teams, because we literally have people in various, 2 offices here in America. We've got an office in the UK, an office in Germany.
And right here in Austin.
Here in Austin, yeah. There's about 70 people here in Austin, I think. I don't know. Anyone from the Austin offices here? I'm sure you are. Anyone out in the audience? No one came out? Put your hands up. Come on. So at least right back. There we go. But that doesn't count, because Jared actually has to be running the machine back there for the Arena Commander demo.
Thank God he showed up, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of them back there by the booth. Anyway. No, I mean, so it wasn't something that I thought would ever be as big as it is right now. I mean, I literally started it thinking, well, I hope I can, I'm pretty sure we can get 2 million as a crowd fund just because of the popularity of like Wing Commander, and I hope to do 4 because that was sort of at the top end of what games had done then. I think at the time I started, it was like 3.3 for the Tim Schafer's Double Fine Adventure. So I had no idea that it was possible to crowdfund this kind of game to this level of magnitude, and I think that's just a testimony to the enthusiasm and dedication of a lot of people, including a lot of people in the audience here, and the fact that that kind of game, I think people love. I mean, I loved it. That's why I wanted to come back and make it. It's like I was sort of feeling like, hey, why aren't these games made anymore? Why can't you do a game like this, especially with today's technology? Because I love space. You know, I grew up, I watched Star Wars, you know, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, read all these science fiction novels. I want to venture around in space. I mean, why can't I do that? I don't want some dystopian sort of post-apocalyptic thing. I mean, not that I don't like those; they're fun too. But I like the idea of like going anywhere in the universe. It's sort of,
right.
And so that was really the inspiration. I sort of felt like PC gamers in general hadn't really been getting games that sort of push the technology. I mean, I'm a PC gamer, but I have all the consoles as well, and I was basically buying all the games on consoles because I'm like, I'm not going to buy a game for the PC because that's written for a 360 or a PS3. What's the point? It usually comes out late, it's buggy, people don't care about it. It's not designed to push the hardware, so I sort of felt like no one's really pushing the hardware like the original, you know, I felt like I did with Wing Commander and its sequels and things like Strike Commander and Freelancer. And then I sort of felt like, you know, I really think there's enough people out there that love space, and so I did it, but I had no idea. I had no idea if anyone cared. I had no idea if anyone would remember who I was.
They
or
care. They care.
Well, no, thank you very much. So, but it was great. So, and I think that there's also something that, you know, besides history in the past and the genre, I think there's something special in how we go about it. That is, it's kind of like the whole thing. Like we start with community. I gave a speech in DICE about how community really is everything for the way we build the game. And I think that we would not be here, even with, you know, the history or pedigree or people liking games I've done in the past, without the way that we sort of build and develop the game, because there's sort of an open development process, and people that become, you know, sort of help support the game become part of it. I mean, they can play the, you know, very early builds, they can give feedback, and they actually can see the feedback they give have an effect on the game. They can see changes in things like Arena Commander, and, you know, their feedback is useful, and that is something you normally never get an opportunity to do on most games. And I think there's something really compelling, especially if there's something you want to have done right and you feel like you can be part of it. And so I sort of feel like our community is an extended member of the team that we have, and I think that's one of the secrets of the success we have, is because everyone feels like they're part of a family.
Do you find that to be a blessing to game development? Because, you know, back in the day, you wouldn't have had that instant feedback, and who knows, you ship a product, you're kind of trusting a marketing department to tell you what they're going to like. Now you actually are getting that feedback directly. Does it both become a blessing, but also like you got to weed through the cacophony of everything that's going on, right? That everybody wants something?
Well, everyone does want something. But no, I mean, I think it's definitely a blessing. I mean, you're always having to deal with other people's, you know, opinions and input. And for me, I'd rather deal with the opinions of people that play the game, that like these kind of games, that like it so much they put their money down ahead of time to make sure it happens. So for me, it's valid. So like, you know, on our forums, or if people, you know, I mean, there's a lot of debates, right? I mean, there's people like they want it a certain way, or, you know, and even inside our community, not everyone's aligned. Some people I want it just to be for PvP. I want it just to be for PvE. I want mouse. I want joystick. I mean, you always have these ongoing sort of debates. But for me, I think everyone's entitled to a voice in that debate, because, you know, they've shown up, they've helped support the game, and that's totally fine. And I actually think it's kind of healthy. And I think that, you know, the job that I do and the rest of the team does is sort of, you know, navigate that and listen to what people are saying, be open to what everyone's saying, and then sort of take on the things that resonate with us, right? So that's what I tell everyone on our team. I said, you know, look, you can't possibly please everyone. It's impossible. But read and listen to what everyone's saying, and if something resonates with you, something that you read it and go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that bugs me too. Yeah, that makes sense. Then that's something we should discuss, and we should maybe think about changing. But so essentially, it's sort of like hold true to your vision, but be open to input. And that's kind of how I like to sort of run development. Now, that works well for what we're doing in Star Citizen, because it's an open sort of sandbox game. You know, that may not necessarily, you know, you can't really do that, say, for instance, in Squadron 42 to the same level, because that's a, you know, linear narrative story. So you can't really debate the story with someone, because you're going to ruin ruin the actual journey you'll take.
Right.
But in the case of the sandbox style games like Star Citizen in the persistent universe, I think this method of development is really interesting, and I think it's a way to make the games better because you just have enough feedback and input, and you can iterate enough. But by the time you've sort of got close to something that you could call finished, it's really been sort of hammered on by a lot of people. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Blizzard or Rockstar generally deliver really good games, is because they constantly iterate on it, right? So they spend years iterating on it. You just don't see it. It's behind closed doors. So one of the things that we're doing is sort of opening it up and doing that iteration much earlier in the process. And I think ultimately it will allow the team, but also the community to craft the best game we possibly can.
So I found it interesting. You were talking about earlier how you were hoping that you would get 2 million, really excited when you hit 4 million. That's honestly not a whole lot for game development these days. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they think about video games, they don't necessarily think that they cost as much to make as movies do, but they really do. Big blockbuster movies and big blockbuster games cost about the same. So even $75 million is not really that much for making a huge, big AAA game, especially one with the scope and scale of Star Citizen. So when you started out with that small team, how was that scope and scale actually? Obviously you already had this idea this is going to be a big game in scope, right? You're exploring the universe. You're able to go into a spaceship to fly around. You're able to jump out of that spaceship and walk around. How has that scope and scale even changed over time as you've got more money in for funding?
So I mean, the initial plan was I was going to raise 2 to 4 from crowdfunding. I had about 10 million lined up from private investors, and sort of the raising from the crowdfunding was sort of going to be determining the valuation that the private investors had. And then the idea was to take that, which was approximately 14 million or so, and build something that would be, kind of along the lines. Like for instance, what we're delivering now is a much bigger and richer and deeper game than we were originally pitching on our site or Kickstarter. And my concept was that I was going to get out the game with less features and less content, and then work at, as we made money, like I don't know like the Minecraft model, right? It's out there, It's generating revenue, and you're constantly adding new stuff, because there's a lot of things that I wanted to do that I said, well, I won't be able to afford. And then as we continue to raise money, basically what that allowed me to do was to sort of scope the development to what we've been raising, and that's kind of how we run development now. And I think I've gone on record to say that everything that we bring in before we call the game commercial is really just getting reinvested back into the game. So at our current clip, we'll be spending at least $100 million on development, probably more. And so we can scope to that. So there's so a lot of it's in the details and the nuance and how much the systems can interoperate before. And it's just a different approach, right? So you can take a look at the way that, Elite's if you take a look at Elite Dangerous that just came out, which, really looks great, and it's really great, and it's a very worthy successor to the original Elites that that Ian Bell and David Braben did. They sort of have a more cut down. Okay, you can just fly around and trade. You can't get out of your ship. You can't walk around. You can't do the first person aspects. And now they're going to be building on those extra ones. Right. Whereas we've sort of taken a slightly different tack, which is okay. We're going to have more of basically you can do all this stuff from the beginning. And the early version of that, for the early version of Star Citizen, was sort of a reduced set of, you would still be able to sort of walk around your ship, but like down on the planets, they wouldn't be as big or detailed. And the very first version of the on the planet stuff, I was thinking would be like Freelancer, where you would sort of have these 3D environments, and you would go into it, you could click on a character to talk to, but you wouldn't be able to move around in full fluid first person or get into combat with NPCs. And so all those kind of extra sort of nuances that I think flesh the world out in a higher level of detail are enabled by the fact that we've just sort of raised a lot more money than we were originally planning to. And I think it's just going to make a better game. I mean, I actually think that there is no other publisher out there that would ever put this kind of money into this kind of game. So I think when it's all said and done, if things don't change, it would have been it'll be a great privilege to be having the opportunity to make this with everyone's backing. So
awesome. Well, look, I think it's fine and dandy to talk about it, but I think we want to show the game off, don't we?
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, so we're just gonna show a few things from the 1.1 build. So this is something that will go live later this week. I think we've released 1.1 to the persistent test universe, which is we basically, even though we let people get content early, we have an even earlier staging point called the persistent universe, persistent test universe. And the persistent test universe allows people to play builds that we don't quite consider good enough to give to all the community and backers, because it's still got some what we consider blockers. So this just went out today, and then I think we're looking at Thursday release for the actual full 1.1. So there's a bunch of features in 1.1, which is the most recent Arena Commander. So one of the first ones is the Retaliator, which is a rather large ship. So Jared's just walking around it, but the Retaliator is going to actually be our prototype multi-crew ship that we're doing for the multi-crew Arena Commander, and it's a pretty awesome ship. So Jared, do you want to sort of get inside it and walk around? And
can you talk a little bit about what some of the roles are going to be in the multi-class ship or the multi-person ships?
Yeah, well, we'll kind of see it for here. So like on this particular ship, you'll be able to obviously be the pilot. I think there's 5 turrets. So, you could have 5 different people manning the turrets. There's a whole sort of torpedo bomber, and there's an engine room. So I think right here, Jared's sort of in the torpedo room. And there's actually mechanics that'll be in the multi-cruise ship that will allow you to help load them and do all sorts of extra stuff for it. Awesome. So all of this, like, one of the cool things is that with the sort of multi-crew flight stuff, you'll be flying this around in space with multiple people on it while dogfighting, or other people are attacking you from the outside.
This has pretty much been in your head since you were a kid, right, Chris?
Yeah.
This exact thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, ever since I saw Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, I want to be in the Millennium Falcon, and I want to have a friend of mine in the turret, and someone going, don't get cocky, kid. I mean, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's we were talking about before about technology, and Wing Commander was one of the first games to actually use real actors. You worked with Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
For God's sakes.
I did.
But now, I mean, we're getting to the point where games look almost as realistic as real life. So I think it's really amazing to come here where, we don't have to use FMV anymore in games. I mean, it's just the rendering.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to, I head to Europe in April, and we're going to start shooting all the footage for Squadron 42. So we're shooting it as performance capture. So we're going to put some really good actors in suits with head cams. There'll be a few people that folks would like to see in it. We're already sort of far along on that process, but yeah, we're actually going to put some really great cast together and tell the story of Squadron 42, and so that's what we're off in the process of putting together right now.
Goes back to another one of your passions, obviously, creating movies and really that intermeshing of the games and movies.
Yeah, well, storytelling. So I love the fact that you can sort of tell stories. And I think there's an engine room back here if we go somewhere. But generally, I think in terms of scope or sizes of ships that you can wander around, this is the next sort of level up. And the Idris Corvette is the other one that we're sort of actually currently heavily in production right now, and that's mainly because that's a major part of Idris frigate, I should say, not Corvette. I'm out of date. But the frigate's one of the ships you'll be fighting off in Squadron 42.
So on the social side, how are you actually going to meet up with your squadron? How are you going to find guys to actually say, hey, I want you to be on my ship, I want you to be a gunner?
Well, there's going to be 2 things. So firstly, in the Arena Commander level, we're going to be allowing you to do it in the lobby. So you'll have a friends list. You can invite your friends, and you can say, I've got this ship, I need some people, I need a couple of gunners, and who wants to be aboard my ship? And then the other thing that we are working at bringing out is so right now it's Arena Commander where we have 1.1. So right now you can go around your hangar, you can fight in space in Arena Commander with single-seater ships. And I've been sort of talking about the multi-crew ship combat, which is later on this year, around about the middle of this year. But the next sort of release that's coming up is the sort of first-person combat, which is what we showed at PAX East last week. And so we're in a sort of polish stage. Is one of the reasons we're not showing it here right now, is I didn't want to bring the whole FPS guys out here and lose another week of them getting it all done and polished. So that comes out, that'll come out next month, and then right after that will be the social module, which is the planet side module, and we're going to show some footage and snippets from that at the event on Sunday, the sort of South by Southwest Interactive closing party, and that will be sort of the extension of the hangar and then the planet that you're on, which at the moment will be Stanton and Arc Corp, and then you'll be able to invite people to your hangar and hang out and go do some things for them and get them to hang out with your ships. And then ultimately in the game itself, when you're playing in the Persistent Universe, you'll be able to sort of tell your friends, meet me on this planet, and they can meet you on this planet. They can all get on a ship together. Or if you have NPC crew on your ship, if you have specific sort of created NPC that you have, you can have your friends take them over and control them. So that's sort of an easy way if someone's got his character on the other side of the galaxy and you're doing something and saying, hey, I'm going on this trading run, I really need someone to run in the rear turret. Well, you it's like you could create your character, like, here's my pilot, I've got Han Solo and a Luke Skywalker and a Chewie, and two of those would be NPCs. One of them you would be flying, controlling yourself, and you'd say, hey, can you come and Tal, can you control Chewie? And you're like, sure. And then I just open up an invite to you, and then you come and you control that NPC for the set of my mission. So
that's great, because it's always one of the hardest things when you have a big, persistent online world like that. It's really meeting up and being able to play.
Yeah. So no, we're very focused on putting a lot of community-driven, organization-driven stuff. I mean, that's basically, if you look at the game, that's, I think, what's enabled to get it where we are. If you look at our website, we focus on that. I mean, we have organizations that people can create on the website. We've got stuff that we're doing on that where people have their own private forums. Is one of the next stages of the organizations on our website, and have their own sort of blog posts, so they can sort of have their own identity and area for organizations they put together, all sort of connected into the ecosystem of Star Citizen. And all that's sort of the template for what rolls across into the game itself. Right. So all that's available in the game, and all the tools to be able to talk to your friends or your organization mates and communicate with them will all be part of it. And then I guess, I don't know if we're heading to space. I mean, the 1.1 update has the Retaliator. Last Saturday, sorry, do too much travel. That we also have a damage system that's really kind of cool that we showed off, and I think we were going to fly it around a dogfight. And yes, it's good. No, it's not. Questions. Got to talk. I got to wave hands more.
Let me ask too. We were talking a little bit about the single player side of the game. Obviously, you're a big storyteller. Do you look forward to reading people's stories in the forums about what they're?
I think it's awesome. Themselves? I actually think it's awesome. I think we have fan created videos like Machima and other, and it's just like some of those you look at and you go, yes, that's how the game should be. I mean, and in some ways, sometimes we take it back and show the people working on that actual game feature and say, yes, we need to be able to do all this stuff in it, and that's kind of like a good example of the ability to the loop that happens between the community and the developers.
Yeah, that's one of the awesome things about a big open world game, right? Is you're making stories up in your head too as you're playing it. So we have this demo up, Chris.
Yeah, so I think we're flying the Hornet. Are we not going to fly the Gladius, because that's the one with the new damage stuff? No, I guess I'm getting a head shake back there. No. I think they couldn't get the internet to work, so unfortunately there's so I think most of you guys have probably sort of seen this, but essentially this is the Arena Commander module. So we have various, the way we're sort of treating the game itself is that you have this full universe that you can adventure around in. And it's a persistent universe, so you can, if you go out and lose your ship, you really lose your ship, and then it has to be covered by insurance or rebuilt. And if you've had equipment or goods on it, you've lost them. And so we needed a mode where you could sort of learn how to fly. We also needed a mode that we could use as a test bed for the space combat of the game. And so that's what we call Arena Commander, which is sort of like a game within a game. So we sort of had fun with it. We sort of said it was created by Original Systems, so sort of a kind of nod to Origin, where I made Wing Commander. and it's something that you can run inside the hangar as a simulation, and then the FPS part we're now going to call Star Marine, which is again, it's kind of like a nod to it. You know, the company that makes it is Interdimensional Software, so it's sort of a nod to id and Doom, just to be fun, like these like late 80s, early 90s style games. And that's sort of, again, a simulation of the FPS aspect. So, again, it's a test bed for us to train it. And what we're trying to do is those are the two core like mechanic areas of the game. And so they're really great places for us to introduce new mechanics, new ships, work on effects, make them better. So one of the big effects that's in the 1.1 patch is we have a completely new procedural damage system that we're pretty proud for, where you can, everywhere where you hit, the physical characteristics of the hit, like a laser burn or a ballistic, projectile hitting, has different effects on the surface and can even like break the surface, exposing the underside, and you can really see the underside guts. It's not like just some top level material effect, and wherever you hit, it's like all procedurally built out, and then we persist it with the ship. And so, like, if your ship gets shot up when you're flying in the persistent universe, you'll bring it back in. It'll have the bullet holes and parts of the interior exposed, and you'll
be able to take out turrets or.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, you'll sort of carry your battle damage with you, and then fix them up, and you'll sort of like, the whole idea is everything has a sort of character, like it has an age and a sense of just progression and life. Like you can look at that, you can look at a ship and it's kind of beaten up, and you say, yeah, he's been through a lot. Just like we'll also be doing the same with characters. The characters will have that same level of
scars are sexy. So.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. I mean, so like character actors, they get older, they become more interesting. And so the new damage systems in 1.1, unfortunately, we're not showing it because I think this is the 1.03 build that Jared's flying around because they couldn't get the internet working up here. I know we're doing an internet. This is a game show here, but they don't really have.
This is live. This is all live, people.
They don't have any good internet. But that will be that's in 1.1. It's kind of fun. So we're looking to that. I think the other things in 1.1 that'll be fun is there's this multiplayer free flight mode, and we've actually been using it in QA to record a bunch of fun stuff, but really the multiplayer free flight mode is almost the kind of first part of the persistent universe space flight, because it allows different players to all fly their ships and do whatever they want, get out, and they can all get in each other's ships and get someone in the rear seat of a turret and do all the rest of the stuff inside the game. And so you can EVA across to a friend's ship and then get into the ship, and the two of you take off and fly. And that's kind of one of the big promises. So it's sort of like a early cheat of the multi-crew side. And so that's the big thing. And actually, that's the thing that's delayed it. We were going to release this Friday, but we still have some showstoppers in that aspect of it. But with that, I think I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what the community is going to do, because we've actually already seen people do some fun videos on the persistent test universe. So that'll be sort of fun.
You guys are trying to go for a very realistic-looking graphic style. Where does your inspiration for your ships come from?
Well, I mean, I think science fiction movies in general. I mean, I think the spaceships at 2945 probably wouldn't look like the spaceships we have, but then they wouldn't be cool. They'd probably just be like boring, spheres or something,
balls,
and it would all be done by computers, and no one would, there wouldn't be any human interaction. So it'd be whoever can process the fast enough and figure out a firing solution, 10,000 kilometers away. So no, we sort of go very much more towards the Star Wars / Battlestar Galactica style, which you could say is maybe World War II. We kind of go a bit more jet in the way. It's a little faster, say, than you would think in World War II. And the inspiration is sort of kind of a combination of sort of science fiction shows that like I've talked about, and also sort of taking current day elements like current day jet fighters or current day ships and sort of projecting them into the future. So I think that like James Cameron with Aliens, and you even saw in Avatar, you can see like present day design elements in his futuristic stuff, and so that's kind of a little of the aesthetic. It's sort of I call it sort of a stylized realism, and so we go for a sort of very sort of filmic look. And we put the detail into the ships to try and make them sort of feel real. You've got, your places you can sleep, places you can go to the toilet. I mean, places You can sit down and eat. I mean, all those things are in a ship. You can walk around and interact with it. I mean, we were walking around the Retaliator before, and generally in the past in space games, you just sit in the front and look out the cockpit. You can't walk around and do things inside the ship. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger, I don't know what you want to say, selling points, but for me, that's the sort of attraction of what Star Citizen promises.
Yeah, it gives it physicality. It gives it something that makes it feel real.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about Squadron 42 earlier. I know we're not showing any of the single player yet, but can you just, and you said you're going to start doing some F&V for that soon. Just give us a sense of, like, once the player gets the game, what's their experience going to be on day one? Are they going to jump right into the single player? They can jump right into the multiplayer, obviously, but how do you see the average player really?
Okay, so when the game is fully finished, the intention is that you get the game. You kind of have a choice of whether you want to just play the open world or you want to get in the single player. We would probably recommend that you play Squadron 42 first because it's going to take you in and sort of teach you how to fly, how to do things in the universe. Of course, a huge amount of our backers will have already be super experts, right. So that may be less relevant for them. But the intention is that it's a good way to sort of ease you into the various mechanics. And so the idea is that you would play Squadron 42 to its sort of conclusion at the end. You muster back out into the persistent universe and then go make your fortune after your military tour of duty. And, Squadron 42 is, pretty significant. I mean, I would say that Squadron 42 itself is going to be equivalent to any AAA, super expensive, big budget console title that will be coming out, say, this fall.
Gotcha.
Because we are literally putting that level of, content and detail into it. So, I mean, it's going to have a lot more. I think currently we're thinking it's about 20 hours of playtime, so like a Call of Duty or a Rise or the Order or more like 5, 6, 7 hours. Mm-hmm. And I think the Squadron 42 that we're releasing the end of this year, that I think we're planning to make a trilogy of them, has 70 missions. And I think we promised 50, so I mean I think we could be accused of over-delivering, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Will there be a tie-in with the single-player game to the multiplayer persistent universe as well?
Well, it's based in the same universe. So, I mean, it's completely based in the same universe. It's just that you will be operating in certain areas, and of course, you're in the military, so you don't have the ability to just sort of take off and go anywhere you want. You're serving on a ship. You do the missions that you're told to do.
Will you get anything in the online side if you complete the single-player, or as you?
Yeah. So the idea is if you play it. Depending on how you do it, relationships you make and how you finish the game up at the end, then that will have some payoff in the persistent universe. So, if you join Squadron 42, then that will open up, which you can do at the end of the game, that will open up missions that you could have in the persistent universe that you wouldn't have otherwise. And so, and depending on certain things you do during the game, will sort of open up things in the persistent universe for you. So it's sort of up to the player. I mean, they don't have to do it, but they will definitely have a connection.
Sure. You've been working on space flight sims for, again, like we said, almost 3 decades now. What personally excites you the most about Star Citizen? What's something that you're just finally able to do now that you've had in your head for so long?
I think the seamless, the multi cruise ships where you and your friends can be on a ship, flying it at the level of fidelity that is sort of the first person detail that we're sort of showing, and having someone manning the turret and flying. Someone else flying, someone else back in the engine room. Mm-hmm. So that's probably sort of the base feature I like the most. But for me, the real thing is sort of the seamless transition between just any of the states, because essentially the whole game is simulated from a first-person viewpoint. So we just do really complicated vehicles, we've done a whole sort of complicated vehicle simulation on top of a first-person game. So that means that you can be flying around, see a derelict ship, open the airlock, EVA across the derelict ship, board the derelict ship, go around inside, maybe you find some valuables, maybe you get jumped by some pirates that are using it as a honey trap for you or whatever, and then EVA back to your ship, then, if you've got, some valuables, and then fly down and land on the planet, get out on a planet, go back to a fence and sell the stuff to a fence. Like that level of fluidity, all from first person, I've never experienced in a game, and I've always wanted to do that. And I can tell you that from a lot of the stuff that we have right now, because we're actively a lot of this is all actively at various stages functioning internally. It's even though you've seen the first person detail and you've seen the space stuff, the fact that it sort of blends between the two, it just sort of like it's the sum is greater than the parts is the way it feels to me. And so seeing that with the level of detail when we have like enough of the universe fleshed out, and then seeing what the players are going to do inside it, because we're basically just creating a bunch of rule sets. It's a big sandbox. It's not going to be heavily scripted. It's going to be sort of heavily, I guess, I don't know how you want to call it, but programmed. So everything has a action. Every action has a reaction, kind of thing. So I'm just making that playing field and just letting everyone loose in it is something that I'm like completely excited and curious to see what kind of mayhem breaks loose. So,
yeah. I'm really looking forward to see all the factions that build up and everything that go, the political side of the game too, right? Well, look, we talked about before, this game would be nothing without the community. So I do want to take some time to turn it over to you guys who are joining us here today. Come up, ask us some questions. Come up to the mics. We'll start on the left here.
I specifically sat there so that I could ask a question quickly.
Smart man.
So you've mentioned drones kind of like helping you, or mining drones, or drones that maybe help repair the ship. That's an engineer's job, might be controlling a drone, repairing the ship as you're in combat or something. How much are drones or that kind of a job going to be available in the persistent universe?
Well, so do you mean, when you mean drones, you mean like sort of a remote control drone versus an NPC, right?
Correct, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that like on some of the stuff, like the mining, drones and some of the repair stuff, we're sort of thinking about having that where, someone on their ship can have several of them and then they can sort of control them remotely from the ship. And also loading and unloading is something that we're also planning on having drones to be able to help you. Because, I mean, the thing is, in the Star Citizen universe, everything's physicalized. So there's not any sort of magic that appears in your hold. You literally, if you're going to get something in space, say you're a pirate, and you get someone to drop his cargo, you've got to get it into your hold. And you actually have to sort of get it in your hold. So you're using a tractor beam, or you're going out in space and pushing it in your hold, or sending a drone out to do it. So there's a fair amount of plan to have that to sort of extend the player's ability, so you can control the drone without like having to expose yourself by going out to EVA. Exactly, yeah. So mining and cargo and repair are all three things that we're planning on.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh.
We'll go over here on the right.
So between GDC and South by Southwest, VR is huge. Everybody's talking about it, obviously. In an earlier build of Arena Commander, the Oculus was working, and we could go on our ships and stuff, and it was rough, but it was still cool. Now it doesn't seem to work. Are you guys going to be bringing that back into Arena Commander in the near future? I know you're busy on the Persistent Universe and stuff, but...
So basically, I mean, there's a new version of CryEngine, which is probably the last one we're going to integrate properly to the game, which is 3.7, which is we have a preview of it now. That has all the new CryEngine Oculus Rift stuff that they were showing at GDC. So one of the reasons why we haven't bothered fixing the old stuff is because we're shifting to this new system and it's already got it working. So it's more a matter of when we integrate it. It's a little complicated for us because we're live, so integrations of the new versions happen in a separate stream. So Arena Commander, that like the 1.1, won't have 3.7 in. So 3.7 is probably going to go in something that will get released probably around about, I would say that it would happen for the multi-cruise ship combat. And then it will be there. And, our plan is to support, it's not just Oculus Rift, but we will support, pretty much most, VR stuff that makes sense. So if, the Valve stuff's there and it's good, then we'll be supporting that. I mean, we believe in VR. We think it's pretty awesome. So it's just a matter of resources. And even though we've got 300 people working on the game, it feels like we could have 600 people and it still wouldn't be enough.
Cool, thanks.
On the left?
Yes, please. I had a question concerning player-run servers. Will it be possible for players to take the game, run their own server, give themselves all the ships, upgrades, everything, and basically, have at it? Would that undermine the funding model? Will you support it? Will you just not stop it?
No. We've said from the beginning that we're going to have allow player-run servers. I mean, the only caveat with player-run servers is that the player-run servers can't possibly be as powerful as the. I mean, we're basically building this cloud infrastructure where it is like server upon server. So like to run the persistent universe the way I've described, it will be thousands of servers operating all at once. So the player-run server is going to be much more like sort of the freelancer model, which is obviously more powerful than freelancer, but it'll be sort of like you'll be able to have 100 people or whatever the limit is for one server running the universe, and then whatever the person that's running their own server will be able to sort of set the rules of that and mod it the way they want. And the way I would see it is that we would the big live persistent universe, obviously we're sort of constantly maintaining that, and then occasionally we would sort of maybe bring stuff across and make it available for the sort of privately run if people want it. I mean, the idea with the privately run is to allow people to set up a game how they want with their sort of close group of friends. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of our plan.
Thank you.
On the right?
Okay, so I was noticing in the salvager description that there's going to be a lot of hunting for artifacts at the moment. Have y'all put any thought on how it's going to work if you're looking for something from a long dead civilization and then marketing that black market or white market?
I think our plan is that we will have alien artifacts and maybe one or two sort of precursor civilizations. And so some of it is, if you're salvaging, you could be salvaging weaponry from people that had battles, and maybe it's a perfectly good Gatling gun, and you can use that, or you can resell it. And then the idea is there potentially could be some alien artifact that maybe you can get, and maybe you can't use right away, and then you have to sort of, it's like a mini mission quest where you got to go and find some scientists that can help unlock it, and then you've got to find someone that can modify it into another weapon, and now all of a sudden you can create a cool sort of fairly unique or unusual weapon that has some features or power that maybe you wouldn't normally have, and that's sort of the idea with kind of like salvaging. So that's like the way you would think of it is a very rare item that you could get, and then you'd have to do some level of crafting to be able to utilize it.
Cool. On the left?
Hi there. My question was just that for the people who really, I guess, sort of want them, are you planning to put any sort of content filters into Star Citizen, like, say, to filter profanity from the chat or from the dialogue in the story, or gore from the FPS or something like that? Is there any plan for that sort of thing?
Well, we definitely have to have a certain amount of moderation and filtering. I mean, one of the ways that we'll do it is that first of all, you can turn things off, right? So you can say, I don't want to listen to general chat. I only want to listen to my organization's chat, or I only want to listen to my friends list chat, or I don't want to hear anyone on VoIP, or I don't want to see everyone's chat. So we'll give people the ability to do that. On a certain level, I think there'll be some level of moderation, and we'll have a certain standard of like, this is acceptable publicly, this isn't. I mean, it's sort of kind of the same stuff that we try to do on our forums, which is, we don't really want people insulting each other, or, being profane or racist, or, any, bigoted, or all the rest of the stuff. But, that's always a bit of a challenge. I mean, it's never, perfect. So I'm sure there'll be some places where we don't succeed, but the intention is to have the tools to allow people sort of to choose what they're going to be, exposed to. And, it's like, you don't want to listen to people trash talk, then don't listen to the general sort of voice over P channel or chat channel. So we'll let people do that kind of stuff.
I think we have time for one more on the right here. Sure, you can meet with Chris afterwards. I've seen him talking to fans over here, so he loves talking about Star Citizen.
You've said before that you're making the space sim that you've always wanted to play. And so I imagine you've thought about this, but when the whole world coalesces and it's all laid out in front of you for the first time, and you get behind the controls of your starship and it's all real and you're launching, what song are you going to listen to?
Good final question.
Into the danger zone? I don't know. I haven't actually thought about that, but anyway. But no, Into the Danger Zone's probably. I was, Top Gun when I was making Wing Commander. I mean, my call sign was Maverick when I was doing this stuff, just because, I'll be very happy to be at that point.
All right, everybody. I think we're at time right now. I want to thank all of you for coming out. I want to thank Cris for talking to us and showing off some of the game.
Thank you, guys.
Remember
and I
that
think I'll be around the corner here if you guys want to harass me or something. So
yeah, and
raise
remember
your
that you
efforts.
can actually play now. If you go to Roberts Space Industries and you become a backer, you can actually jump into Arena Commander now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.